The Spring Festival, more famously known as Chinese New Year, is the most important festival for the Chinese. A time for reuniting with loved ones and indulging in the traditions of old. A time for family and filial piety. Ethnic Chinese around the world celebrate Chinese New Year with pomp and circumstance.
Happy New Year!
And countries besides China are starting to recognize the significance of this auspicious festival.
Because today we say yes to Lunar New Year as a school holiday in New York City.
The announcement prompted these two Chinese Americans to take a bold and much-awaited step. For the first time in 30 years, they will be returning to China to celebrate Chinese New Year.
30 years is a very long time, So we feel like 30 years we've been missing so much.
Brothers Zhou and Zhou Huang left for the United States of America in 1985 and went on to become a household name in the world of contemporary art by creating pieces that brought East and West together. Today, this world-famous artistic duo are embarking on a new journey. They're coming home.
Since I left China, I never been celebrate the Chinese New Year in China. The last 30 years, only can imagine, from the memory.
Their walk down memory lane in search of the spirit of the Lunar New Year began in their hometown of Guangxi. With a long-awaited reunion with family. But their journey doesn't end here. The brothers have one last stop before they head back to the US. The heart of China, Beijing City, where they will reunite with friends they haven't seen in decades, in a city that has undergone one of the biggest transformations in recent times. Join the Zhou brothers as they bring East and West, tradition and progress, the past and the future together this Lunar New Year. Beijing, the capital of China. World-renowned artist duo, the Zhou brothers, are here in this ancient city for the biggest and most beloved Chinese festival, Chinese New Year.
Chinese New Year has been my favorite holiday before I left for United States. So I always missing this favorite holiday in the last 30 years.
Since I left China, I never been celebrate the Chinese New Year in China. Many great memories. That's a good food. That's I'm missing the most, like the zhongzi, sticky rice, 5 different color.
Good.
Now I'm so excited. Say we come to celebrate the Chinese New Year in China.
Brothers Zhou and Zhou Huang first left China in 1985 to make it big in the United States. This is the first time that they will be celebrating Chinese New Year in the country.
小时候我们就玩这个东西的。
小时候找树杈。
对，找树杈。
你这个做的比较好看啊。
咱们这个是拿那个机器爆了一下，然后有雕刻的。
对对，你这个。
但这个是在中国是可以带上街吗？
对啊，可以。
是啊。
对，木质的可以，铁质的不可以。
铁质的可以。
凡是男孩都会玩。
对。
As the most important festival for the ethnic Chinese, it's a time when families come together to celebrate kinship, filial piety, and honor their elders. And a time to revisit old traditions and get reacquainted with the symbols of Chinese culture, like these scented sachets. Known in ancient times as fragrant bags, even today they adorn Chinese homes during Lunar New Year, signifying different desires.
香包年年有余，哎，双铃铛的，绿色比较洋气，红色的比黄色的比较那个，黄色显富贵，拿黄色的嘛，黄色显富贵。哎，对，礼服，好吧？
好了。
哎，好嘞，哎，一共是30块钱啊。哎，好了，哎，好嘞，好，慢走啊，哎，再见啊。
谢谢啊。
The brothers find themselves in a familiar place, Tiananmen Square.
Tiananmen is the #1 place you must go.
The brothers once brought their mother to visit Tiananmen Square during Chinese New Year. They still remember that day vividly.
We have a nice picture with the mom and the whole family. Take a picture.
Have a picture
in
there.
front of the.
I was so proud and feel so special, you know. In China, the Chinese New Year, I think, is the must. Rich or poor or different, in the different job, you must go home.
Chunyun, the Chinese New Year travel season, has been described as the largest annual human migration in the world. Every year, hundreds of millions of Chinese return home to ring in this auspicious start to their year with their families.
But they're happy, you know. That's one of the, once a year, the special time and happy time to celebrate together with the whole family.
Chinese New Year is also a time for delicious food. The Zhou brothers are at Karochi restaurant. It has been around for more than 150 years, serving some of the most authentic Beijing Chinese New Year dishes.
With the lamb is really delicious.
Certain dishes are eaten for their symbolic meaning. Lucky food is served during the 15-day festival to bring good luck to the new year. Not only the food itself, but the way it is prepared, served and eaten is very special and significant.
That means sweet, and cozy and all time.
Savouring these dishes reminded the brothers of their time as students in Beijing. Zhou and Zhou Dahuang first came to Beijing to study at the National Academy for Arts and Crafts. Their contemporary art style experimented with Eastern and Western influences and made them the most famous painters of their generation in mainland China during the 80s. In 1985, they took a chance and moved to the United States to showcase their art on the world stage. In the time they have been away, Beijing and indeed China has undergone a massive economic transformation.
30 years ago, it's totally a brand new Beijing. Give that the first expression.
Before
That
we
time
left
is,
for 1985, everything is not so modern. The whole city that time still pretty calm. No skyline.
No skyline, and then not so many cars.
Towering evidence of this transformation, this. The Beijing National Stadium, also known as the Bird's Nest, was designed and built for the 2008 Olympics. The Zhou brothers, like other Chinese around the world, felt a surge of pride when they saw it on their televisions. But now, they're setting foot inside the architectural marvel for the first time.
That's amazing. You know, it's the first time here.
That is more, we only see it
look
from
here.
the
You can see the whole
from the-
sky.
from the opening. Now it's so grand. Wow.
Costing almost $500 million, the behemoth is the world's largest steel structure and the most complex stadium in the world.
It's kind of architecture in Beijing that really represent the changing.
The modern time.
But it's hardly China's first contribution to the world of epic architecture.
I feel my heart is pumping. The Great Wall is always in a memory in the heart, but it's the feeling a little bit in a different way. The feel the still grand, a lot of things changing. A lot of things is different today, but the Great Wall still stand there. It look like still the same.
The Zhou brothers have a history with the Great Wall of China. In 2011, the artistic duo was commissioned by the White House to create an art piece in honor of then Chinese President Hu Jintao's visit to the United States. Their painting, in their unique style of blending East and West, melded imagery of the Great Wall and portraits of 8 US presidents.
I think the Great Wall is one of the amazing things you can imagine happen in the human history. The grand, the mysterious, and actually it's back to many thousand years ago from the Qin Dynasty, Han Dynasty. In the Chinese, they have that kind of thought. If you have not been to the Great Wall, you did not consider to be the great man. When
So
was
we-
the first time?
I think we came here the first time is
The
like
78.
78. Just like I
right.
remember we just like left the village, not so
Right.
far, not so long.
That time we both much younger.
The Great Wall has stood for more than 2,000 years. The longest wall in the world. It is an awe-inspiring feat of ancient defensive architecture that draws over 10 million people each year.
So
Yes,
Great Wall
the
is
state-
always one of the great symbols for Chinese and even for the whole Asia. That's why like when we create a painting from a US president and Great Wall.
And it's easy to see why. In recent times, the Great Wall has also become a big part of the Chinese New Year festivities. But the age-old traditions of reuniting with friends and family during the festive period remain strong. And that's why the Zhou brothers are here at the Hometown to see their friend, Wang Yi, whom they haven't seen in 3 decades.
I always encourage like how the people, that kind of lot of family live together, how they spend time, how they celebrate the Chinese New Year.
Right now, the Hutong and the Chinese courtyard, compared with today, the modern life have a great contrast.
Contrast and very different, but it's amazing. A lot of people still live here.
A hutong is an old lane or alley that has preserved the old way of life in Beijing and the richness of traditional Beijing culture.
Only that kind of old courtyard, the hutong, the life sometimes a couple hundred years, almost a couple thousand years, they still the same. That's amazing.
慢点儿，慢点儿，车高慢点儿，好的。
Wang Yi warmly invited Sun Zhou and Da Huang to his home to partake in the Chinese New Year festivities when he heard they were visiting Beijing.
赶紧就要打扫卫生，把屋给它整湿一新，锅里呀、各
旧的
方面儿
去旧
能用的东
迎新
西呀，
的
对，都给打扫干净。30当时开始的时候呢，上午就开始，起床以后就开始贴对联儿啊。
During Chinese New Year, the Chinese paste red couplets that are short poems or inspirational slogans around their house to welcome the return of spring. In his first attempt at calligraphy in 30 years, Zhou has chosen the lines, "When the country is strong and flourishing, its people will lead prosperous lives." It's a fervent wish for both Wang Yi's family and his homeland, China. With the reminiscing done, it's now time for one of the most significant traditions of Chinese New Year's Eve, making dumplings. With a history of more than 1,800 years, dumplings are especially popular in northern China. They are shaped to look like Chinese silver ingots that were traditionally used as currency. Legend has it that the more dumplings you eat during Chinese New Year, the more wealth you will gain in the coming year.
人包着也行啊，也可以，
不太好。你在传统上只是过年才包饺子是吧？过去
平常也吃，
平常也吃，主要是30儿。30儿12点打钟的那会儿，做着要开锅，饺子要下锅，下锅煮饺子。
就是到那个钟
点正好12点的时候吃饺子。捞的时候呢，一定要剩。 锅里的要剩俩，要剩，盘子的也要剩俩，所以呢，年年呢老有余，饿不着，这个都是长辈，给留下来的。
An old Chinese New Year tradition used to see a coin hidden in one of the dumplings. The one who found the coin was said to have found good fortune in the year ahead. These days, though, the coin has been replaced by symbolic foods to grant specific wishes. With the dumplings done, Zhou and Da Huang are ready to hit the town and see how the rest of Beijing is celebrating the Spring Festival. When they first came to the city as art students, they couldn't afford to go home to Guangxi to celebrate with their family. So they formed a tradition of their own, dining with friends and watching the Beijing Opera.
Those friends, we know them for many years. Those friends is like the one you never have a contact with them like for all the year, but when you call them, they're always there. So that's why it's great to see them.
The Zhou brothers are at Wanfeng Snack City, a restaurant known for Chinese New Year delights. It houses hundreds of dishes from all around China.
对，老北京小吃啊，豌豆黄、驴打滚。
The Beijing opera originated in the 17th century, usually depicting historical themes. It is regarded as the essence of the Chinese dramatic arts. During Chinese New Year, the Beijing opera typically draws large crowds because they showcase uplifting stories in Chinese history. Similar to the operas in the West, the Beijing opera is a combination of singing, dancing, martial arts, music, and literature. The costumes themselves are works of art, often handcrafted. Around the world, the Beijing opera has been rising in popularity since the early 20th century, creating ties between the East and the West. During Chinese New Year, the Beijing opera brings together the young and the old to feast on a visual cornucopia of Chinese history.
One thing of the Chinese culture, it will be continued always.
They will have a strong...
Peking opera is a really strongly represent Peking, the culture.
国剧.
This will be forever. Maybe like a different, some younger generation, in the beginning, maybe they are not so into it. But sooner or later, they will realize that's very important. That's really unique and represent this Beijing.
I think they need the great artists to continue to carry or develop the tradition. Yeah, they little bit like today. They have so many things coming up, like the movie and the internet and so many things. But the Beijing opera is still so special. I think in the future should be have more and more that kind of great artists to carry the tradition, to develop it.
The Zhou brothers have come a long way in just 2 weeks. Their journey began in Chicago, US, and took them back to their hometown, Guangxi, in southern China, where they reunited with their family they hadn't seen in years.
Come back, the feeling a little bit like when we was
a little boy.
A little boy, the happiness, you're just so happy.
Yeah.
So
you remember the sound, even the smell.
Yeah, to see the Dui Lian, see the lantern or something, you just feel so happy.
In the time-honoured Chinese New Year tradition of paying your respects to your elders and ancestors, Da Huang and Zhou got the chance to remember their mother, who passed away in 1999.
We feel like Mommy always wish her son doing great, but we feel so sorry to Mom. He did not see what we, have been left with today.
Celebrating old Chinese New Year traditions with their loved ones in their hometown of Guangxi also helped them in creating something new, a painting to reflect their feelings of kinship and harmony during the Spring Festival in China, a homage to the traditions of old and the transformation of people and places since they've been away. A way to always keep the Chinese New Year spirit in their hearts. It's a big night. The Zhou brothers are about to do what they do best, collaborate and bring the past and present together. In the ancient practice of Chinese New Year, they are throwing a reunion dinner.
Tonight we're going to have a big celebration for the New Year celebration in our studio. And we have a lot of good friends, old friends, and all the performing artists.
Only this time, in typical modern fashion, they are expanding the meaning of family to include their friends and peers.
That would be a great evening.
After 30 years in America, I almost forget, today I realize I miss so much. I would like all my American friends to know how Chinese people celebrate the Chinese New Year.
今天晚上非常激动，跟在座的好朋友们，我们欢度中国的大年夜，新年快乐
！Happy New Year！
A joyous dinner full of great food, great laughter, and reconnecting with friends brings a harmonious end to the Zhou brothers' eventful trip. A cultural smorgasbord of musical performances rings in the new year for Shenzhou and Dahuang and their peers.
And in the future, we'd love to make it opening in Beijing and Europe. And also we would love to set up the studio in Beijing, come back, spend some time in China, create some new work, but of course, still a lot of time a home base like in the States and Europe, and that's what we love to do.
Bringing to a close an emotional ride filled with nostalgia, cultural appreciation, and remembering the important things in life. Creating heartfelt memories with family and friends.
春节快乐！春节快乐！